Hello and welcome to Spare Change News TV. My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Spare Change News. Joining me today is Alja Benjamin. Hello, welcome to Spare Change News TV. So Alja Benjamin is possibly the longest-serving vendor, street paper vendor in the country, possibly in the world. So, how does it feel to be like possibly the longest-serving vendor in the country, or even in the world?
Wow, it's a big honor. I don't know. It's like this is what I do every day. I never thought about it in those terms of being the world's oldest dinosaur.
Not stressing the dinosaur part. No, I think Alja, you are sort of, for a lot of people at Spare Change News, you're being the longest serving vendor. You've been through it all, so you have a lot of tips to help with the other vendors. What are, like, if you have someone that's new that comes into Spare Change News, what do you tell them?
Just be patient. You have to be patient selling newspapers, because maybe the first time you go out, people don't always, buy your paper. You just have to be patient, kind of build up relationships with people in the community.
And I've heard you say that you're sort of like a street psychologist. Do you feel like what types of conversations do you have to your customers and the people that you meet on the streets?
Well, we talk about everything under the sun. I never realized so many people had problems or issues until I actually started selling the paper. And just build relationships, and people trust you. They talk to you about everything. A lot of different things in their life, what's going on in their life. So just, we just try to help one another, cope.
So, you're the interview with you that ran on the back page of Spare Change News the first edition that I was editor-in-chief, did very well. A lot of people responded to it. Did you sign autographs on the back of the paper?
Oh, yeah. And even from that, I still have people wanting copies, so I bought an extra couple of copies so I can give out to customers, friends, people, they want to read about. My sales went up probably 20% from that article, and yeah, I'm doing okay, financially since that. I've gotten a little popularity in the community.
So just Alja Benjamin sells Spare Change News at Porter Square. And have you been at that spot for years, or what have you been all around Cambridge, or what's your history selling the paper?
Well, Porter Square, I've been there about 10 years, and Harvard Square about 10 years, maybe 12 years in Harvard. But Harvard, it became a tougher selling area, a lot of competition, a lot of homeless people, and probably every 10 feet there's somebody asking for something. So rather than deal with all that, I just move out and go somewhere else. Porter Square is nice, because the mall, the people give us permission to be there, and we have a relationship with the people who run that mall. So, yeah, that's, I don't have to deal with panhandlers.
So the weather has been an extreme issue. We've had we did definitely have the snowiest winter ever in Boston. And how has it affected what you do?
It has. I mean, I just have to. I use hand warmers and foot warmers and try to put on extra layers. That's what you have to do. You just have to adjust to whatever's going on. That's what I do anyway. And I prefer to be outside because, I can't. I don't know. In the train station, people don't. After a certain time in the day, there's nobody walking through there hardly. So, I prefer to be outside. And most of my customers actually go to that CVS, so I have a pretty steady customer base.
So having had so much experience with Spare Change News, how has the paper changed over the 22, 23 years that you've been with Spare Change News?
I think the writing has gotten tremendously better.
Good answer.
I just think writing and more like telling people what's going on with this paper, I mean, you have to know something about what you're selling out there. and I try to read the paper. And if somebody walk up to me and ask me what's in the paper, I need to know that. So that's how that's the way I sell papers. I present my product, you know.
You know, as far as like your backstory, so you're originally from Alabama. How is it? First of all, how do you like deal with the cold up here? Has it been hard for the cold? Are you a cold weather person? Or?
Well, I was raised in the North.
Oh, you were? Okay.
I was raised here.
Oh, okay.
But my parents came here in 1960s.
Oh, okay.
And I think just before the assassination of Martin Luther King, and I think one of the first times, you know, like I ever seen like trouble or violence or anything like that was during that assassination, when all the cities in Boston were in trouble. You know, they burned down the cities and they looted businesses and all that. You know, that was. But you know, I go home every year. I try to go home every year. You know, can't afford it all the time.
You know, also in regards to, so you said the writing's gotten better, but how has sort of the paper in general, because like the media landscape has changed dramatically over the past like 10 years or so. So people that would buy newspapers 10 years ago are going online for their news. Have you found sort of a shift in regards to sales? I mean, I know sometimes some issues sell better than others. Any insight into sort of the industry as a whole?
Yeah, well, every 4 years it changes. You know, we mostly deal with college students, so every 4 years you got a new crowd of people coming into the city. And that's like telling people what this is all about all over again, you know. So it changes every so many years. But, you know, the main core of my sales are middle-aged, elderly. And so I do well because most of the people that I deal with are based here. But if you deal with a lot of college students, you'll find that your sales might not be great in 4 years, you know.
And you know, as far as like what can I do as Spare Change News' editor to reach out to the college kids? Any suggestions?
Well, in my opinion, I think you need to take some issues, maybe some back issues, and drop them off at the college. You know, let them pick them up and read about it. You know, that's the only way you really can educate, you know, new students about what Spare Change is all about. So if you just take some articles or some papers to the college and just leave them in the front.
Okay, that's a good idea actually, because I think that there is a whole untapped market. Because I went to college here in the early '90s, and I remember Spare Change News from like 92, 93, that era, and '94, and that's when it was just starting. And you know, having seen that, like, has your role? Were you distribution manager back in the '90s, or what have you? What type of roles have you had at Spare Change News?
I pretty much did everything, you know. I had your position at one time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've done distribution, supervisor, outreach.
Okay.
You know, many things to try to, you know, advertisement, because that's one of the areas that we're not great at. I think that we can also make improvement in advertisement, but you know, over the years we struggled with that, you know, and I just think that somehow, you know, we can improve on that advertisement.
Well, when you're saying advertisement, do you mean actually promoting Spare Change News outside of just the vendors, like promoting it at schools and also having advertisers advertise in the newspaper?
I mean, every avenue we can tap into as far as advertisement is concerned. But also, what I'm saying is we can advertise small businesses in the community. You know, Spare Change is a great outlet for that. I mean, we don't have we don't have a lot of readers, but I think if you put advertisement in it, it just might boost your sales and your volumes.
Actually, we do have a lot of readers, and I think that, I mean, compared to say college papers, we're about on the same level as like the readership is around like 10,000 per issue, which is really good. So if you have an advertisement in our paper, then it would reach 10,000 eyes, maybe even more.
Even more.
Because a lot of people I know, and I've actually had like my roommate purchase Spare Change News, and I've read it. So like that's a lot of people pass it on to their friends, especially if it's an issue that's of interest. You know, as far as stories that have that have affected you? Like any stories in particular that really stand out over the years?
I really don't focus on the stories like that. I think what affects me is the fact that when you do like the profiles on vendors, people who are struggling. I mean, I like to see people talk about what's going on in their life. It's good to know who you buy the paper from. And up for years, many people they stopped doing that. They did profiles, but they stopped, and you came along and started doing it again. So I think that's something that you should stay with, profiles. And for many years, people didn't know who I was. I'm just trying to sell a paper. But now they know who I am. They know that, okay, this is a person. It's not just some bum on the street selling newspapers.
And that's exactly my goal as editor of Spare Change News is to promote people that work hard. I mean, you're probably one of the hardest working people I know. Selling the paper is not easy. And so speaking of that, like so with the cold and being I'm older too, so I'm not saying you're old or anything, but but does it wear on you? I mean, you've done this for so many years. Does it harder as you get older to sell the paper?
Yeah, it's harder. I mean, it's harder being outside in the wintertime. What I could do 10 years ago, I can't do today. I mean, my feet get cold, my hands get cold. At night when I go home, it takes me hours to warm up, for the cold to get out of my bones and stuff. But, I do it because I have a family, and right now I don't have any other means of support. So that's why I sell papers, daily, 7 days a week, most of the time.
So just to let our viewers know how to purchase a paper, for many times I didn't know how much the papers were. So recommendations in regards to, I give $3, $5, $10. Any recommendations in regards to donations for the paper?
Well, it's whatever you feel like you need to give. When people ask me how much the paper costs, I tell them $1. And a lot of times they'll give me a 5 or they'll give me 2 or 3, I appreciate that, but I want to be honest with them. I want to let them know that this paper only costs $1. You know what I mean? I think that's what actually builds up your customer base when you start being honest with people. There's a lot of people probably out there doing deceitful things and saying deceitful things, and a lot of times our image get caught up in that. You know what I mean? So we have to really protect the image as much as possible and try to be honest with the customer.
And I feel like that the quality that we have in the paper now is worth more than $1, $2, $3, $4. And also, this money goes directly to the vendors. So it's really important not only to support the paper, but also support people like Alja. And that's why it's important for me to feature you in the paper and to let everybody know. I mean, for example, like the profile that we did on you on the paper was picked up by INSP, which is our news service. So it actually ran in Real Change, which is in Seattle. So you have cross-continental coverage here, and then there's potential for it to be picked up internationally as well. So purchase the paper from Alja. He's going to be at Porter Square pretty much every day. And we're going to play, we have a clip that we ran a few weeks ago on Alja. We had a huge response to this clip. So we're going to play it again. And thank you so much, Alja, for your time.
Thank you.
You're fantastic. I really respect you.
Well, it's tough. I mean, you spend long hours out here selling papers, and right now it's cold outside, so, that time is cut in half, because, it's kind of, my age being 53, it's a little more torture on my body than it was when I was 20-something,
I'm invisible. Now, I'm usually invisible. I was going to write a story about Invisible Man. Invisible homeless man.
Well, I use hand warmers and toe warmers, I have to spend a few dollars to use them, to get them, but I don't mind that, because, I understand what my mission is. My mission is to support my family, the best way I can. And the only way I can do that is be present, you know. If I'm not out here, then it's not like a job where you can take a day off and get sick pay, you know what I'm saying? If you're not here, you don't get paid. What I really got involved with Spare Change for was because I didn't want people to go through the same situations that I've been through. Because I know bouncing around from shelter to shelter with no money in your pocket, you know, it's no good, man, you know. And there's no jobs out there. No jobs if you're a homeless person. They don't hire homeless people. You must have an address, you know. I was homeless, living in shelter, and the only means of support at that time for me was panhandling. And a Spare Change vendor approached me and told me how this paper could help me, and you know, the rest was pretty much history. When I started selling the paper, I sold, I think, 50 papers that day. You know, it made me feel good how people treated me when I sold these papers, how they talked to me. When you're panhandling, nobody stops and talks to you, you know. And, you know, it was a very depressing thing to do, panhandling, you know, for me. It kind of kept me in that negative state of mind, negative thinking. I didn't go to college, I didn't finish high school, although I got my GED, but, you know, it took me a number of years to do this. I started having children at a young age, you know. I got a divorce at a young age. I got depressed, and I went into this whole thing of drugs and alcohol and stuff. Even though I was using and drinking, I was still a functional alcoholic. You know, my children saw me, you know, when they needed something, they got it, you know. But I don't want to be that no more, you know. My head is completely clear. I have a destination where I want to be in life. You know, I'm just working to get to that destination right now.
Welcome back to Spare Change News TV. Joining me now is Adam Sennett. Welcome, Adam Sennett.
It's good to be here.
Adam Sennett is our online editor. He actually was also editor-in-chief at one point and editor-at-large. What haven't you done at Spare Change News, Adam?
Nothing yet. I haven't been a vendor yet, but I've had a lot of good years with Spare Change, and it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, we can arrange the vendor thing. I'm actually going to go out in the field and be a vendor in April, so maybe you can join me.
Sounds like fun. Sounds good to me. At least the weather will be warmer.
Yeah. Of course, we just saved it for April when it's warmer outside.
Right. I don't know how our vendors have been doing it in the cold this winter. I have no idea. But.
Well, the thing is, like, and Alja is very humble, but it's been very difficult for the vendors, and we do have access to go inside and actually sell the paper inside the MBTA stations. But people like Alja, you know, they still sell the paper at the same spot outside in the freezing cold. So it's very, very admirable.
Yeah.
So Adam, as far as like the things how did you get involved with Spare Change News?
So I got involved in Spare Change News, I believe it was 2009. I can't believe so much time has passed now. But I got involved because I had completed a pre-college program at the Community Learning Center, which is right down the street from here in Central Square. And on one of my first classes there, one of our teachers told the whole class about her experience being homeless. She was going to school. She had gotten a big national scholarship, and she was going to school to eventually become a college professor. I believe she was getting her master's degree. And while she was in school, she had been raped. And she also shortly after that, she got really sick, and she had no health insurance, and she wound up homeless for about 7 years or so.
Wow.
And she never wound up getting her graduate degree, and didn't become a college professor like she had dreamed of, but she wound up getting housed, and she wound up becoming a tutor at the Community Learning Center, and she eventually wound up being a teacher there, and she was one of the people that inspired me to go to Emerson College and get into journalism. And so anyways, I was walking down the street one day in Harvard Square, and I saw a vendor selling Spare Change, and I thought, that's the paper I want to tell her story in. And I contacted Emily Johnson, who was the editor then, and she let me write the story after the teacher was very generous to let me write her story, and so I've been working with Spare Change ever since.
So what have you seen as far as that story? By the way, blew me away. I kind of was led in a similar situation where it's a calling.
Yep.
When you come to Spare Change News, something happens in your life and it pulls you in, and sometimes it's a little tumultuous, but other times it's very, very rewarding. So I do feel like when I joined as well, it was something else led me here that's bigger than me.
I think that's part of one of the best parts, one of the most rewarding parts about being editor-in-chief, as I'm sure you're seeing now. You get those experiences with vendors and with people, and like one of my best memories as editor at Spare Change, I was meeting with one of our vendors who wrote for the paper every single week, and I would meet with him every week too, and he'd pitch story ideas, and he had just written a story about the Outdoor Church of Cambridge, and he had been writing for Spare Change for years, and I had just started, and he was pitching a story to me, and then he just out of nowhere stopped in the middle of his pitch, and he goes, "I saw one of the reverends from the Outdoor Church of Cambridge. They read my story, and they said it was well written and informative." And then he looked at me and he goes, "I'm not used to that." And this guy had been writing for Spare Change for years, our vendor, and he just wasn't used to getting complimented. And it was big for him. You could tell that it had a major effect on him, and that had a major effect on me. and that's what I think we get to see that as editors.
It's extremely important because we have a mix of college students that write for the paper. We also have vendors that write for the paper as well. The profiles we have Andrew Warburton, who I've worked with on many publications, and also he's edits my books. He does the vendor profiles.
That's great work.
And so I feel like it's really important for me to reach out to the vendor community and have them write as well. So what are some of the hurdles when it comes to that, working with the vendors? I mean, there's issues, of course, with resources.
Mm-hmm. We don't, in terms of, we don't always have the money to pay everybody. We have been paying our vendors now $50 an article, so when they contribute, and but also not all the vendors have necessarily the skill set to sit down and write a story on their own. So it's good that we're here to help mentor them and help lead them on the way, and especially if they want to do it. And that's another thing. Not all the vendors want to write, but it's really good when we get the ones that do, and they really enjoy it and get something out of it. It's
really important for me to tell their story. We have various ways of telling their story. It could be even online. So Adam is now our online editor.
Yep.
So Adam, as far as the online, so how has that changed since you've been online editor?
So one of the things I've been working on is building up our audience, because when I first looked at our Facebook page, sometime after we got a Facebook page a couple of years ago, we had something like 352 followers, and now we're at 2,600.
Wow!
And so it's growing. We want to continue growing. Viewers out there, please like our Facebook page. We need as many people on there as possible, and I also think it helps too, because when people share our stories, their friends will see how good our editorial content is and the stories are, and the vendor profiles, and see the hard work that people like Alja are doing.
We've had a huge response online as far as the number of hits, people that have, the biggest I've seen is I've been at various publications, and our online reach has been all over the country, all over the world.
Yeah, it's been dramatic. People are sharing our stories, liking them.
And we have, outreach people, media people that are reading our stories, and they're getting ideas from our paper. So that means a lot to me as an editor, that we are trailblazers when it comes to editorial and stuff that we cover. So we only have a few minutes left, Adam. Mm-hmm. So the latest, we have the gala coming up. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about our Spare Change News Anniversary Gala? Yep.
So it's going to be May 12th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Nerd Center in Cambridge, in Kendall Square. You can buy tickets online. We just got the link up yesterday, so
after some issues with it,
we made it work. but yeah, Michael Morrissey helped us out a lot.
Oh, great!
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Anyways, check it out, please. Buy tickets. It's going to be a great time, fun event. Yeah.
And also, I mean, we don't have a keynote speaker. However, I have signed on to be one of the speakers at the gala, so that should be interesting when I speak in front of a large group of people. So any closing thoughts, Adam?
Please check us out. We get some great stories coming out. We had the homeless census on the cover of the last issue. We've got a big interview coming up.
Our big interview is
Do you want to tell them?
Amanda Palmer.
Amanda Palmer.
Yes, our big interview is coming up this coming up issue. So again, sparechangenews.net.
Yep.
My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Spare Change News. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you for having me here.
It was a pleasure seeing you and having you on the show and also working with you on a daily basis. So
You as well.
have a great night, and we will be back next Monday at 5:30 p.m. on Channel 9.